Assalamualaikum in Hairata. My name is Nurul Idina Atira binti Zakarani. My metro number is 30925. Today I'll be presenting my study on the determinants of financial performance for Sinopharm Group. Sinopharm is the largest pharmaceutical and healthcare retailer and wholesaler in China. As a state-affiliated company, it plays a critical role in the national supply chain, covering everything from manufacturing to retail pharmacy chains. Its growth has been fueled by China's aging population and the rising demand for quality medical service. Despite its market leadership, Sinopharm faces a major challenge, which is they have low asset efficiency because of declining return on asset (ROA), falling to a decade low of 1.79% in 2024. Next, the company have the credit risk because of troubling upward trend in the average collection period (ACP), reaching 123.334 days in 2024. And Sinopharm also have governance gaps because of absence of a specialized risk management committee and stagnant board diversify, which is CG index fixed at 0.7692. So my research aims to determine the impact of internal factors on ROA, to identify the influence of external factors on performance, and to evaluate the combined impact of both internal and external factors. To understand this issue, I focus on several key areas. ROA was chosen as my primary metric because it shows how effectively management uses resources to generate profit. For credit risk, I follow a research by Lazaridis and Trifonidis, which confirmed that longer collection times that measure as SCP can directly reduce a firm's profitability. Next, internal factors like liquidity risk that measure by current and cash ratio and operational risk were analyzed alongside external factors such as GDP growth and CPI, which can create the economic environment the company that cannot control. My methodology involved analyzing 10 years of secondary data from 2014 to 2024. I use SPSS software to perform a three-tiered quantitative analysis, which is descriptive statistic, Pearson correlation, and multiple linear regression that using ordinary least square. So I tested 3 specific models, which is Model 1 focuses strictly on internal firm-specific factors. Model 2 examined external macroeconomic factors, and Model 3 evaluated the combined impact of both to get the most accurate picture. Descriptive statistics serve several fundamental functions in understanding the company's financial and operational environment. So the function of descriptive analysis is to establishing the average state, measuring volatility, identifying underlying patterns and trends, and also it can provide a historical perspective. So looking at our data, mean of return on asset ROA is 0.0242 and standard deviation is 0.0037. The extremely low standard deviation indicates that Sinopharm's performance is highly stable and consistent, with very little variation over the 10-year study period. Next, mean of average collection period ACP is 110.02 days and standard deviation is 9.66 days. It shows that timing for payments varies by about 10 days each year, making cash flow slightly harder to predict than other areas. And lastly, looking for mean of gross domestic product GDP is 5.7908 and standard deviation is 1.8883. This station can create market risk. So since GDP is inconsistent, the company cannot rely on the economy alone to drive profit. Based on correlation data, we identified that ROE have significantly positive and strong correlated because R equals to 0.972 and p-value is 0.000. Not only that, we found that SCP is significantly negative and strong correlated because R equals to negative 0.797 and p-value is 0.003. This statistically proved that as the time taken to collect debt increases, Sinopharm overall profitability significantly drops. Next, looking for model summary for adjusted R-square analysis. The adjusted R-square value indicates the percentage of variation in the dependent variable ROA that can be explained by the independent variables. first looking for model 1, which is for internal factors, achieve an adjusted R square of 1.000, which is 100%. Next, for model 2, for external factors, the report indicates a significant but lower explanatory power for external factors alone compared to the internal model. Next, for model 3, that combine for both factors model, this model also achieved an adjusted R square of 1.00, which is 100%. So, to conclude, model 1, in short, model 1 and model 3 are the most powerful because they explain 100% of the variance in ROA, that demonstrating that internal management factor are the primary drivers of Sinopharm performance. ANOVA can test to determine if the overall regression model is a good fit for the data. Looking for this data, model 1 for internal factors, P equals to 0.143, it means not strictly significant at the 0.05 level. This model shows that internal factors like ACP and liquidity have a stronger relationship with performance than external ones. Next, for model 2, external factor, which is P equals to 0.317, this is the least significant model. So this model proved that macroeconomic factors like GDP, inflation alone are not good predictors of Sinopharm ROA. The company is resilient enough that the economy does not dictate its success in isolation. So next, for model 3, combined model, that P equals 0.052, this is the most powerful and reliable model because it is right on the edge of the standard of 0.05 threshold. So this hybrid model that combining internal efficiency with external context is the best fit for the data. So we can see that the model 3 is the most successful because it can reduce the noise in the data. By combining internal and external variable, the model becomes much more accurate in predicting why ROA falls or rises. Next, for regression coefficient, looking for model 1, this is model prove that Sinopharm performance is mostly decided by how well they manage their own operation. ACP P equals to 0.012, this is more significant finding because the P value is so low. We can say with high confidence that the average collection period is the biggest threat to ROA. So for every extra day it takes to collect cash from hospital, so Sinopharm ROAs can drop. It confirms a liquidity trap. The company is profitable on paper, but cash is stuck in unpaid bills. For operating profit margin, P equals to 0.039. This shows that cost efficiency matters because Sinopharm is a high volume distributor. Even a tiny improvement in how they manage warehouse or logistic costs, 3.77% mean, significantly boost their ROA. Next, for model 2, this model shows that external forces act as a background noise rather than a direct driver. No significant because P more than 0.05. This is a key insight from my presentation. It implies that Sinopharm is resilient. As a state-affiliated company, it is large enough to absorb shocks from interest rate changes or inflation without its ROA crashing immediately. Even though not statistically significant, the negative trend for interest rate and CPI suggests that when the cost of borrowing goes up in China, Sinopharm margin gets squeezed, even if it does not lead to a total loss. Next, last model, model 3. When we put everything together, the model becomes a perfect predictor because adjusted R square 1.000. We know that net profit margin P equals to 0.040. So in this final model, then NPM takes the lead. This suggests that while SCP credit risk is the main problem, the net profit margin is the main solution. It shows that the company's ability to keep its final bottom line steady after paying all tax and interest is what ultimately determines if the assets are being used efficiently. To conclude, Sinopharm remains profitable but is highly sensitive to credit cycle and interest rate volatility. The recent drop in return on asset to a decade low of 1.79% in 2024 is primarily driven by an upward trending average collection period, which reached a high of 123.34 days. This suggests at the accumulation of receivable is outpacing income growth, creating a significant strain on asset efficiency. Based on this, I recommend Sinopharm must do aggressive credit reform. Management must urgently shorten the debt collection cycle to release trapped capital and improve overall profitability. Next, they must establish a risk management committee. The board should create a specialized committee to provide proactive oversight of volatile credit exposure and complex supply chain risks. Sinopharm also must build governance evolution, means that Sinopharm needs to move beyond institutionalized governance by improving board diversity, aiming for the 30% female threshold to enhance strategic decision making. And lastly, they must do operational discipline. In a new normal of slowing GDP and rising costs, the company must focus on operational efficiency and cost control to protect its thin profit margins. That's all from me, Doctor. Thank you.